Disclaimer. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The room was quiet except for the low hum of a dim lamp in the corner, casting soft amber light on the sheer curtain that danced with the night breeze. I stood in front of the mirror, still unsure, heart tapping a little too loudly inside my chest. His presence behind me was silent but thick, heavy with intent. I didn't have to turn to know he was watching. I felt it in the back of my neck, in the slight hitch of my breath. "Don't look away," he said, voice low, calm but commanding. My eyes locked on my own reflection, cheeks flushed, throat dry. Then came his touch, just a fingertip, tracing the line where my shoulder met my neck. I shivered. Not from cold, from knowing what came next. He moved slowly, deliberately, like he'd waited for this moment all day, maybe longer. The strap of my slip fell from one shoulder, and I could see his hand, steady and confident in the glass. He leaned in close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath behind my ear, but didn't hear a sound. That quiet made everything louder. The pulse in my ears, the way my breath caught, the flicker of nerves and want colliding in my chest. Then his lips pressed against my spine. Once softly a pause, then again slower, lower. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My knees felt weak, and my hands gripped the edge of the dresser to stay grounded. I could see his eyes in the mirror now, focused, burning with something unspoken but clear. His hands slid across my stomach, fingers split, claiming space. I closed my eyes for a second too long. When I opened them, his mouth was at my shoulder. Still nothing said, still that silence. And then without a word, he moved with a kind of stillness that was somehow louder than anything he could have said. But just before I could lose myself in that moment, something shifted. Not in the room, in him. He stopped, eyes still locked with mine in the mirror. His hand froze, and what he said next changed everything. There were things we didn't say anymore. Not out of anger but routine. Love in our house had turned quiet like a song you know by heart but stopped humming years ago. He used to kiss me on the forehead every morning even before brushing his teeth. Now sometimes we'd cross paths in the kitchen and barely speak. Just a nod, a clink of mugs, the weight of everything left unsaid between us. We weren't broken, not in the way stories often are. We just slipped slowly, softly, like forgetting a dream right after waking. But tonight something shifted. That mirror moment, it wasn't just about touch. It was about being seen again. It had started earlier that evening over dinner. We sat across from each other, candlelit takeout between us. He asked how work was, but this time he actually looked at me when I answered. His gaze lingered longer than it had in months. I caught myself tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear, the way I used to on our first dates. "You've been quiet lately," he said, voice low. "Careful." "So have you," I replied. There was a pause. Not awkward, just thick with meaning. Something about the way his jaw clenched told me he wanted to say more. He didn't. But when I stood up to clear the plates, his hand brushed mine. He didn't let go right away. Later, he watched me from the hallway as I undressed for bed. He didn't speak, just leaned against the door frame like he was trying to memorize me again. And I let him. It had been months since I felt nervous under his eyes. But even as he touched me in front of the mirror, kissed down my back like he was tracing forgotten paths, I knew this wasn't just about tonight. There was something he wasn't saying. Some truth hiding in the way his hands held a little tighter than usual. The way his breath caught behind every kiss. He was trying to bring us back, or maybe say goodbye. And I didn't know which it was yet. He noticed it before I said a word. The way I flinched when his hand brushed mine that morning. I tried to hide it behind a smile, but his eyes held me still. "You're not here," he said quietly. "Even when you are." I looked away, busying myself with the laundry, with anything that wasn't his stare. But the truth had started to swell quietly, dangerously between us for weeks. He wasn't wrong. My mind had been somewhere else or with someone else. It started innocently, a coworker. Late meetings, shared coffee runs, that laughter that came too easy. I hadn't crossed any lines. Not yet, but I'd come close. So close it scared me. He saw it in my hesitation. And suddenly I saw it in him too. That undercurrent of jealousy, sharp and unspoken, twisting just beneath his calm surface. That night, he came into the bedroom with a different energy. Not soft, not slow, intentional. His jaw was tight, His kisses rougher, possessive, like he needed to remind me of something I hadn't forgotten, but maybe stopped feeling. "You still think of me like you used to?" he whispered, brushing my hair back, searching my face. I opened my mouth, closed it. There it was, our breaking point, inches away. His hand slipped beneath the strap of my top again. Déjà vu from the night before. But this time there was tension behind every movement. A dare, a challenge. He leaned in, not kissing me yet, just holding that heat an inch from my skin. My breath hitched. "If there's someone else," he said slowly. "Say it now." There wasn't. Not really. But the part of me that hesitated, he felt it. And instead of stepping back, he pulled me closer. Like he'd rather fight for me than hear the answer. The storm outside had started hours ago, but inside the real storm was just beginning. We hadn't planned to be alone. He showed up unexpectedly, said he forgot his phone charger. I should have sent him away. I didn't. The rain hit the windows like a ticking clock, counting down to something we both felt coming. I stood in the kitchen barefoot, holding a warm mug I wasn't drinking. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes locked on mine. Neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was thick, buzzing, heated, electric. "I should go," he said finally, voice low and uncertain. I nodded, but neither of us moved. Then, too quickly to think, he stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of his skin, the tension in his breath. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out the storm. He looked at me like he was memorizing something he couldn't say out loud. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. But I didn't. His hand lifted, fingers ghosting just below my chin, tilting my face up. Still no kiss. Just that breathless space between us where everything waited. His other hand brushed against my waist, not gripping, just there grounding me. "You're still mine," he said, not as a question, but like a truth he needed me to remember. I swallowed hard. I wanted to say yes. I also wanted to run. My body pulled toward him like gravity didn't give me a choice. We were inches from a line we couldn't uncross. Then came the sound, his phone buzzing on the table. He didn't move, but I did. I stepped back just barely. He watched me, jaw tight, chest rising. Neither of us spoke. And then I heard it. Footsteps at the door. Someone else was here. The door creaked open just as his hand brushed the side of my neck. We both froze. Framed in the hallway, soaked from the rain, stood my husband. Not him, the one I shared my bed with. The one who had kissed my spine the night before like I was still his. And now he was staring at the man I had almost kissed in our kitchen. The room shattered into silence. I could feel the blood drain from my face, my breath stuck halfway between panic and guilt. But he didn't say a word. He didn't yell. He didn't lunge. He just looked at me, and something behind his eyes cracked. "I left work early," he said, voice calm. "Thought maybe we could try again." The other man stepped back first. His jaw was tight, fists clenched, like he knew what we almost did had already gone too far. I should go. But my husband didn't move. He just walked past him straight to me. His eyes were glassy, but not with tears, with clarity. "How long?" he asked. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say it was nothing, that it had barely been a moment. But something in me, maybe the guilt, maybe the shame, cracked too. "Nothing happened," I said. But I thought about it. That was enough. He looked down, took a breath, then looked back at me. Really looked. "I could feel you slipping." I just didn't want to believe it. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. "I never stopped loving you," I whispered. He searched my face for truth. And then, just like the night before, he leaned in. But this time the kiss wasn't quiet or careful. It was desperate, fierce, like he was trying to erase everything that had just happened. He lifted me onto the counter, hands firm, mouth insistent, and for a moment all the tension, all the betrayal twisted into something raw, real, reclaiming. But as he pulled back, breath ragged, he whispered something that chilled my blood. "Don't ever make me choose between forgiving you or becoming someone else." And with that, he stepped back, leaving me breathless, trembling, and unsure if the storm had passed or just begun. The house was too quiet after the door slammed. He left, not in rage but in silence, and that somehow hurt worse. I stood in the same kitchen, the air still thick with the memory of everything that just happened. My hands were shaking. I pressed my palms to the counter to stop them, but my body wouldn't calm down. I had finally crossed the line, not with my body but with my heart, and he saw it. I heard footsteps behind me. He hadn't gone far. He returned with his suitcase. "I'm not doing this halfway anymore," he said, voice rough, eyes rimmed red, but dry. "Either we burn this to the ground and rebuild it, or I walk away for good." I turned to face him, chest tight, pulse racing. "I never wanted to hurt you," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "But you did," he shot back. "And not just because of him. You hurt me the day you stopped letting me in. That broke me." Tears came fast, messy, unstoppable. I sank to the floor, back against the cabinets, sobbing into my hands. For the first time in months, maybe years, he came to me, not to scold, not to shame, but to sit right beside me on the cold tile. Quiet. He reached over and took my hand. "I don't care about him," he said softly. "I care about what made you look somewhere else." I looked at him through tears. I felt invisible. He nodded slowly. So did I. It hit us both at once. This was never about one moment of temptation. It was about all the moments we missed, the mornings we didn't kiss, the dinners eaten in silence, the slow erosion of intimacy we never admitted was happening. He leaned his head back against the cabinets, eyes closed. "What do we do now?" I asked. He opened his eyes, turned to me, and said one word. "Fight." And in that messy, quiet, tear-stained kitchen we did. Not with anger, but with honesty. With truths we should have told each other long ago. With apologies and admissions and raw, real love. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And sometimes that's where healing begins. The rain had stopped by morning, but the air still smelled like something new, fresh, unsettled, full of quiet promise. We stayed on the kitchen floor until the light crept in through the windows and the silence between us finally softened. No more accusations, no more pretending, just the steady rhythm of two people who had broken apart and somehow decided to stay. He brought me coffee without saying a word. I took it, fingers brushing his, and for the first time in a long while I didn't pull away. Neither did he. We didn't erase what happened. We didn't try to paint it prettier than it was. But we chose to look at each other like we did in the beginning, without fear, without pride, with the kind of honesty that only comes after you almost lose something you thought was permanent. Later we stood on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, his arm around my waist. The sky had cleared, but drops still clung to the railing. Everything felt a little colder, a little brighter. I leaned into him, my head against his chest. "I never stopped wanting you," I whispered. He kissed my forehead, pulling me closer. "I know. I just forgot how to show you I still wanted us." And right there, under the soft morning light, he kissed me again, not out of possession or fear, but gently, with every unspoken promise tucked behind his lips, slow, tender, sure, like we had rewound time, like we'd chosen to rewrite the ending, not as strangers surviving under the same roof, but as two lovers who dared to fall again. That kiss didn't fix everything, but it reminded us why we were worth fixing. And maybe that's what real love is. Choosing each other again, even when it would have been easier to walk away.